Now, it's recently come to my attention that I've once again become a jaded boomer asshole about video games. And this is no surprise to me, it's happened several times before, as I've lived through the death of all of my favorite games of all time. And so I figured if the future looks bleak, it might be time to look towards the past, and remind myself why I fell in love with gaming in the first place. And along the way, I'll attempt to answer the question, does the 360 hold up? Back to my closet, and back to pick another game. We have some shit no one's ever heard of. Okay, fuck that. Let's go with this one. Yeah, Borderlands 2. An incredible game, and one that I'm going to have to make another copyright-free version of the intro song, because it's so iconic. Again, I'm sorry.
It's cute that y'all think you're the heroes of this little adventure, but you're not. Welcome to Pandora, kiddos.
Now the question of the video is, does Borderlands 2 hold up? Yeah, it does, obviously. That one's kinda self-explanatory. Borderlands 2 is one of those games that's just so well designed and satisfying that it sort of undermines the fact that it's over a decade old. If you were to suggest a replay of this game to your friends, I don't think anyone would even really call it into question. It's in that same category of game as like Halo 3, the kind of game where you're just gonna end up replaying it every once in a while because it's just so iconic that it earns those revisits. And so obviously this video is less about answering the question, does it hold up, and more explaining why it holds up so well. And honestly, I feel like it would be easier to describe the reasons why it doesn't, of which there are almost none. The art style of this game really covers up for its age and makes it look like it could have been a game that released just yesterday for the most part. It rarely suffers any performance issues at all, and honestly that is one of the reasons why it doesn't seem like it could have come out yesterday, because every game that comes out in modern times seems to be plagued with performance issues. Not sure why that is. Really, there is no reason whatsoever not to pick up this game and play it above anything else that you would play in modern times. The only potential reason I could think of is if you're just sick of the game because you've played it so much. But even that is somewhat of a stretch of the imagination, because Borderlands 2 really nailed the billion guns concept that the original game was going for. The amount of powerful weapons that you'll find across the single playthrough vary quite a bit, and will generally keep each playthrough fresh and rewarding. It's kind of a combination of finding really powerful guns and getting lucky that those guns fit your build, while also finding guns that don't fit your build whatsoever but are so good that you just kind of jam them in there and use them for their high stats. Another improvement on what the first game attempted to do is that Borderlands 2 has a considerably more expansive level up system for the unique character skills and traits. On this playthrough that I did, I was playing as the Gage character, and for the first time I tried out her Anarchy path, which focuses on getting kills and staying alive so you can build up stacks of the Anarchy buff, which increase your damage by 1% and decrease your accuracy by 1%. This adds a really unique playstyle to the playthrough, and had me focusing on obtaining Hyperion weapons, which gain bonus accuracy the longer you hold down the trigger. And that's another thing that Borderlands 2 does that was vastly improved on upon the original game, which is making the unique weapons manufacturer traits a much more all-encompassing mechanic. In Borderlands 1, only the highest tier of rarity of weapons would have a unique trait based on their manufacturer, such as the ability to regenerate ammo on, I believe, the Tediore weapons. However, the mechanic in Borderlands 2 is to make it so that every weapon has a manufacturer, and every manufacturer has a unique trait to them, which is another level of variety added to the weapons sandbox, and certain traits can have a really high synergy with certain builds, such as I described with my Anarchy Hyperion style of play. Overall, the gameplay of Borderlands 2 is much more all-encompassing of the looter-shooter RPG style of gameplay that the original game was going for. The builds are better, the loot is better, and the shooting is better. As I described in my previous video, Borderlands 1 has some quirks to its weapons system that make the weapons feel a little bit awkward at times, such as the sniping having low accuracy, making it somewhat unrewarding. Borderlands 2, however, is fine-tuned so that the shooting is definitely a lot tighter, and even with the low accuracy build I was running, snipers were still viable, and honestly were one of the more viable weapons in my kit, considering that they do have such an increased accuracy over anything else I would run with high stacks of Anarchy. And so, with the looting feeling good, the shooting feeling good, the RPG elements feeling good, what about the things that you can shoot at in order to loot? Well, the enemy variety is also another aspect that's vastly improved on the original game. There are plenty of new enemy units within factions of enemies, as well as new factions altogether, such as the Threshers and the Crystalisks. As well as that, this title introduces enemies that can evolve on the battlefield, making it so that you'll want to either dispatch them early so as to avoid a more powerful threat than you can handle, or allow them to evolve so that way you can take them on at that increased difficulty for increased XP gains and potential loot. These being the Goliath, which once you pop their head off, they will attack their own enemy faction and gain XP from the kills that they get, multiplying that XP into level ups, eventually reaching an almost boss fight state. And the Varkids, which metamorphosize into further evolutions of themselves, but can also be shot in their cocooned form, giving you more XP than the evolved version. I feel like these enemies add a lot of variety to the gameplay, and it feels like the total battlefield is evolving within the different ways that you can engage with the combat. And so I would say that the game is certainly an overhaul of the original, and is an enhanced version of it in just about every way. Specifically gameplay-wise, you have better looting, better shooting, better things to shoot at, and a better RPG experience. But let's get into the quirkier side of the series by asking the question, do the jokes hold up? And again, I would say, especially compared to Borderlands 1, the jokes are a massive improvement on the vibe of the original game. As I described within my previous video, Borderlands has essentially 3 jokes: making fun of a weird guy,
You'll never take me alive, you robotic son bitch!
Claptrap is stupid,
What the hell are you Holy scatsack!
and funny title cards and naming conventions.
My publisher says I can't call them bona fides. Bullymong's not so bad after all. Come on back.
And I wouldn't say that Borderlands 2 strays from this, but I do think it expands the catalog of total jokes by quite a bit. However, I do think that there has been a pretty massive cultural change since 2012 when this game came out. I would argue that people have gotten considerably more cynical, and that it's kind of a weakness to laugh at something for it just being silly. Maybe this is just an American problem or an Instagram user problem, but I feel like modern jokes are more or less centered around the idea of cynicism and general darkness and absurdity. Jokes more where the punchline is, I'm a racist, I'm gonna kill myself, or I'm going to hurt other people. And I don't know, I feel like a lot of people forgot that that was supposed to be a joke. Like, the punchline is the absurdity of the darkness of that content. There's just way too many actual racists out there. I feel like people gaslit themselves into becoming that. Like, you realize the punchline is on you if you're making a racist joke, but you're actually a racist. Like, you're the joke at that point, right? Anyway, on the opposite end of the humor spectrum, Borderlands 2 is a lot more random, silly, light-hearted nature of jokes. And I think in modern times, admitting that that kind of humor is funny is sort of like admitting a weakness, admitting you're a millennial who likes random humor, chimichangas and bacon and such. It's raining tacos type shit. And I'm not here to say that all that shit isn't corny, you know, millennials are fucking lame. But the perspective I would like to add to Borderlands 2 being a sort of millennial-centered, random style of joke sort of game is more that the jokes aren't necessarily jokes, they're more just keeping the vibe up. It's not that any one joke is supposed to have this big punch to it. It's more that the game is constantly hitting you with charming and funny dialogue, with absurd characters acting in character according to who they are. Such as the voice line by Handsome Jack, where he humorously recants a story of a man charging him with a spoon in his most desperate moment, and then taking glee in killing him. It's less that this is an actual joke, it's just a vibey moment to express that Handsome Jack is insane.
He can't see where he's going. He's bumping into stuff, and anyway, I don't know. Maybe you had to be there.
And a lot of this humor is kind of just background noise, literally. Where the first game had a very silent, atmospheric tone to it, a post-apocalyptic world that you're just driving or walking through, the sequel very rarely has silent moments. It's very in-your-face with a ton of dialogue in the background that usually expresses something about the main characters and fleshes them out in a way that's more than just exposition or a few cutscenes here or there. Honestly, a lot of it is kind of hit or miss, but the sheer volume of what's being presented to you, there's going to be funny moments. In particular, I really like the scene where you're defending Claptrap as he's attempting to open one of the Hyperion gates, at which point he is thwarted by a female AI voice, who closes even further gates and sends reinforcements. The scene plays out as a little horde mode where you destroy enemies, and Claptrap has a fast-paced dialogue with this AI, which is essentially him rizzing up this robot.
Reinforcements depleted.
Don't worry, baby. Happens to a lot of girls.
You know, in total, I find it to be a funny concept. Maybe I'm a lot less cynical than I even realized, but hey, got a laugh out of me. Anyway, all of this is building to the most significant upgrade to the original game, and what I would consider to be the strongest facet of Borderlands 2, which is the characters of all things. As I described in my previous video, the Borderlands 1 characters are almost non-existent. The plot is meandering and full of MacGuffins, and eventually ends with a nonsensical giant monster that had nothing to do with the rest of the plot. And the characters are exposition dumps at best, and one-note slapstick jokes at worst. However, Borderlands 2 pulls out all the stops as far as character development. As I said, you're almost constantly hounded with characters trying to shove their quirky personalities in your face, for better or for worse. Whether that be Handsome Jack constantly taunting you throughout the whole game, which shows off just how much of a petty bitch he is, despite being the most powerful player on Pandora. But then there's also characters like Tiny Tina, who you'll either love or hate. One of the more surprising characters that gets an upgrade in the sequel is Claptrap, who previously was just a simple generic robot. with a quirky customer service style of corniness that generally just made him kind of fucking annoying. In Borderlands 2, it's revealed that our Claptrap is the last Claptrap left, and that the total cumulative trauma of existing on Pandora has had a distinct effect on his personality.
Sorry about the mess. Everything Jack kills comes here. Bandits, montages, laptop units. If I sound pleased about this, it's only because my programmers made this my default tone of voice. I'm actually quite depressed. Apart from the excruciating pain, this is great. I've been waiting for a sanctuary. I will be your wise leader, and you shall be my fearsome minion.
He's essentially done the robot version of going insane here, which is first hinted at within this early section of gameplay. As annoying as Claptrap can be, and as much as he's played as a one-note punching bag character, there is a depth to him in Borderlands 2. The running gag that he sees you as his minion and that he is this heroic adventurer could be interpreted as a coping mechanism for the trauma that he's endured from the bandits on Pandora as well as Handsome Jack's actions. And it is satisfying to watch him overcome the fearful, timid character he is and to take a stand against Hyperion's actions.
This is it, minion. Our vengeance is finally at hand. Let's tear this planet a new soul. Yeah!
A character arc that is, unfortunately, ultimately cut short.
Together, we shall free Pandora. I will lead you into battle. I will destroy Handsome Jack with my bare hands. I will... Stairs? No!
There's got to be something like 100 times the amount of voice lines that there were in the original game in Borderlands 2. And that's not wasted effort. This game really puts in a ton of effort to elevate its predecessor, specifically by fleshing out the Vault Hunters from the original game into fully fledged characters that get their own little plot devices and motivations. And this develops into a really strong sense of motivation to kill Handsome Jack if you played the original, no matter which character you chose to play as. Brick's dog was killed by Handsome Jack's girlfriend. Lilith gets kidnapped, tortured, and forced to open the second vault. Roland gets straight up fucking murked. And the character I played in Borderlands 1, Mordecai, has an extended sequence where his pet, the action skill in the original game Bloodwing, is kidnapped and experimented on by Handsome Jack, and eventually pitted against us in a really unique and interesting boss fight, which takes into account the abilities that Bloodwing had in the original game to embody certain elements. And the drama and suspense of this boss fight playing out as you're attempting to pacify his pet, which you come very close to doing the whole time while Handsome Jack is running a bit about which of the elements he's forgetting that Bloodwing can apply to herself to enhance her combat potential, the final of which ultimately ends up being explosive, and Handsome Jack forces Bloodwing to commit suicide right in front of us. This is a pretty expertly crafted scene that combines gameplay elements, lore from the original game, character development from a character in the original game, potentially nostalgia if you played with this character, and a building of tension that eventually results in a tragic climax. It's pretty wild to think that the silly joke game has moments like this in it. And it all comes down to how Handsome Jack is a pretty solid villain despite being pretty simplistic if you really think about it. He's just kind of an insane CEO with a grudge to bear against everyone around him. A totally unrealistic depiction of CEOs and billionaires, am I right? I think it's been praised to death before about how interesting it is that despite this obviously evil mentality, Handsome Jack is still convinced that he is the good guy, that we and the denizens of Pandora are all just bandits, and that we're just a bunch of dicks for attempting to stop him from pilfering the valuables from this planet and then dipping. And to an extent, you can see where he's coming from. The Vault Hunters aren't exactly good people across the board, and the psychos across all of Pandora are just the leftover employees from a different corporation, leaving them behind after they made their money and dipped. As much as a dick move as it is, you can kind of see how, from Jack's perspective, it's just business, nothing personal. and that every step of the way throughout the main campaign, both from the player's actions and Handsome Jack's reactions, that it becomes personal the more the main characters refuse to just die, which ultimately culminates in us killing his daughter. Which obviously sounds bad when you ignore the fact that he's been essentially keeping her imprisoned for the sake of his financial gain, something that he can explain away because of some ambiguous thing that she did to her mother. Handsome Jack is both insane, but also it's explained pretty vaguely why he is so insane, and is probably explained a bit further in the pre-sequel, a game that I haven't played yet. Spoilers, that's my next episode. And so when you put all of this together, the incredible weapon variety, the fresh take on enemy variety, the build crafting, the enhanced weapon play, the total vibe of humor that the game gives off, and the much more expansive and in-depth take that the game has on characters, Borderlands 2 does much more than hold up. It holds up its entire IP. From what I can tell based on the vibes that the fanbase gives off, there's a lot of coping about how good the other games are. But I don't think a single person would disagree with me when I say, yes, Borderlands 2 holds up. This game is fucking incredible. Thank you all so much for watching for another episode in this series. Again, join me next time for the Borderlands pre-sequel, which I'll be going into blind, so hopefully it's good, I don't know. Anyway, leave me a recommendation for some 360 games I may have overlooked in my childhood or never had the chance to play. Like and comment and share and whatever else you feel like doing, I guess. It's your life. And I'll catch you next time.